That lighting is awful. Absolutely awful. Okay. Let me see if I can do it. Can I do anything to switch that? I guess not. Looks good on Instagram. It just doesn't look good on Facebook or on YouTube. Sit forward, sit back. All right. Well, this is going to be interesting. I'm just. um, well, it's another amazing day in paradise. I'm going to say that I'm broadcasting live both on YouTube and Instagram. Got the phone. So I can be on Instagram and YouTube at the same time because I don't have any fancy equipment that allows me to post on both. And that gives me a lot of headroom. That one doesn't. Okay, I think we're good. It's pretty good positioning. I created a post today um, called CPS on Me. And I'm actually sitting in the very store that I was told, where one of the employees called me yesterday and told me that they had heard from an employee that CPS had that CPS had come here looking for me, and asking me about when I panhandle and how long I've been panhandling and different things of that nature. Now, it's not illegal for me to panhandle because I have a beggar's permit and I've been doing it off premises. And when I first started doing this, one of the managers came out and he told me, as long as I'm not on the property, and I haven't been. And so, but with this information, it really made me sick. Well, it didn't even make me sick. It made me contemplative. My initial reaction was like, it kind of made me sick. It upset me a little bit. But at the same time, it was like, I don't know who this person is. I don't know their motivation. And as far as I know, they felt they were doing what they needed to do in order to protect my son, which, okay, but you don't know us and you don't know that he's not safe or taken care of. So as I contemplated this, God was just like, it's time to tell your story because people really don't understand homelessness. Everyone has their own story. There is no one size fits all story at all. Everybody has their own reason for homelessness. So before I get started telling my story, I want to tell you about a few of the people that I know who have experienced homelessness recently and in some way, shape, or form are still experiencing some level of homelessness because they don't have their needs met. Um, I'm going to start with the gentleman I met yesterday. His name is Joe. I was at the park. Me and Wisdom went there yesterday after we had to check out of the hotel because we didn't have any more money. And when I spoke to Joe, just the nicest guy, he tried to sell me a pair of sunglasses. He was trying to sell some sunglasses so he could get a pack of cigarettes. And he's like, I know it's the worst. And I said, well, I knew that I hadn't seen him there before because that we go to this park fairly often. And I asked him what was going on, and he said that he had been evicted from the house he had been living at for 15 years because the owner committed suicide, and the person who bought it is developing the property and gave him 30 days notice once the property was sold that he had to move. He said he didn't know what he was going to do. He really didn't know what he should do, so he put his stuff in storage, and he's literally been for the last 3 weeks living on the streets. He's got a bike. He goes to a storage unit. Yesterday he had like a speaker and like a dolly and stuff locked up with a lock at the park. And well, because he had left to go run some errands on his bike, I imagine. And so I gave him some resources, and especially with the storm coming, I just wanted to make sure that he had what he needed, that he would be in a safe place. I did recommend that he sleep in a storage unit if he needed to. I told him about Oak City Cares, which he knew nothing about. And just went from there. There wasn't anything else I could do. I didn't have any money to give him, or sunglasses aren't something I buy anyway. But he was the most recent person that I met who was unhoused. When we arrived at the park, there was another gentleman there who he was using the space. He was drying out his tarps, and I said, I hope you don't mind us joining you and using the space. I mean, there's 6 tables under there. We weren't bothering him in any way. In fact, when we arrived, he was moving stuff around so that he had consolidated to one space. But he never said anything. And I know that he's been living in the park or in different locations because we've seen him at more than one park for a while now, for as long as we've been going there, as far as I know. And I've seen him throughout the seasons. I've seen him on and off the property, but mostly he's in that area. And so that's two. I know that there are at least 4 people living in cars and 2 or 3 other unhoused men that frequent this park. Um, and so, people like that, me and Wisdom call them our neighbors, but, you know, there's so many people struggling. Then there's the father who has 2 adult children, 2 younger children. Um, he was living here in his car with his youngest, with 3 of his children, one of his adult son and 2 children, his 2 youngest who are 3 and 10. Um, and they had an invitation to go to Ohio to stay with a friend and got there, and the friend asked them to leave because after one day of the littlest one, who's 3, being really active during her work hours, she said she couldn't handle it. And so they couldn't stay. And thankfully, the dad was calling around asking for help. And he found a shelter that would accept all of them. It was a family shelter. And there was a family who had not did it was a no-show. And so yeah, so they're in Ohio now, but they'd had a life here, and their stuff is in storage here. And as far as I know, they don't have a way really to earn any funds regularly like they were doing here, doing things like plasma donation and things of that nature. And so that's another family. There's also a single lady who's unhoused that I know of, and she's connected to a lot of people because she actually stays in the emergency shelter. And when she can't get into the shelter because it's full for the night, then she sleeps outside. And then there's the single mom with a 4-year-old who is on her own as well. Me and Wisdom hosted her for a night in the hotel. And yeah, the way I met her is her son was sleeping on the steps at the Go Raleigh station one day when me and Wisdom were walking through. We had parked in the parking garage and were walking over to the elevator and saw. Initially, I thought it was a person, and when I got closer, I saw that it was a child. And so, me and Wisdom are not the only ones. There's a lot of brilliance in the unhoused community that's not tapped into because people are living in their fight or flight. And that's me and Wisdom's blessing is that I strive for us to have regulated nervous systems. But I really, after saying that, I want you to understand that knowing all these things about all these people and knowing that they've tried things to get the help they need, want to tell my story as to why we are not housed, why we are not seeking for help from any of the organizations. And it has to do with the very first experience I had with an organization. We were in an organization called Family Promise. It's still called Family Promise, but their program works differently than it used to. And so I don't know how it works now. What I know is that every week we stayed in a church. We arrived on Sunday evening and we stayed until Sunday morning. So about a week. We had to clear out before church started because all the classrooms were essentially bedrooms for the families. And we went to a different church every week. We happened to have been there for 7 weeks. And we left literally maybe 2 weeks before COVID started. And it was in that shelter experience that I witnessed this one mom. I mean, I witnessed a lot of things, but in particularly, I witnessed this one mom who had moved to the shelter because they had space for her and her daughters. She had a CDL, which was suspended, and it wasn't her fault. She'd had a vehicle, and She had a vehicle and she had given it to her brother, and her brother had gotten into an accident with it. And because she was the one whose name was the last person the car was registered to, the insurance company sued her. And because she couldn't pay the couple of $1,000s that were required from the lawsuit, then her license got suspended. And I watched her go through this program and worry, but nobody would simply just help her get her CDL jobs. They're always in demand. Like, there isn't a place. We run, survive, and thrive because of truckers. Like, they deliver locally, long distance. She could have got a job on a school bus. Like, she had so much potential to be making good money. And she literally had to settle for a $10 an hour job at a convenience store to satisfy the demands of the program. And I just thought, that can't be me. Then she had to figure out where the affordable housing thing and how she was going to pay for it and all this other stuff. And I was like, but that's not how everybody else does it. And I realized that there was like no humanity at all for people who were unhoused. Absolutely none. It was like we fall into this separate category over here so that we shouldn't have things like everybody else because, because we're unhoused. So we must not be real people. And that's exactly how I felt. And I knew that I wasn't going to have the support that I needed to do the things that I felt I needed to do. But I also knew that if I was just to go out and get a job, just to get a job, just to satisfy the demands of somebody else, it wasn't going to meet my needs. It wasn't going to get me where I needed to go. And I was determined at that point that I was going to just follow my own path. Not only that, but very early on, when we were in one of the first churches of this experience, maybe like the second church, God was like, "Don't take this personal." And I was like, "Excuse me?" I'm like, I'm here with my baby. He's 4 years old. He doesn't understand why we no longer have a house or a place to stay. That's our own. Um, and like, this isn't fair to. How do I not take being without a home personal? And but that was also the time frame that he had me do an intimate study of the parable of the exceptional Samaritan. And if you've read any of my blog posts, then you understand why my niche is compassion and alleviating the suffering, giving the mercy needed, not the mercy given. There's a difference between the mercy given and the mercy needed. Mercy isn't really mercy if it doesn't meet the need. Compassion isn't compassion if it doesn't alleviate the suffering. And if people are still suffering after you, quote unquote, extended compassion and help them, then it doesn't really work. And so, what I endeavored to do was, in the past 2 years, 3 years, I've really sought to level up me so that when I stepped forward into whatever it is that God was going to have me do, that I'd be ready, that I'd be in a position to make better money, to take care of me in wisdom, to be able to solidify our housing situation and things of that nature. And just the judgments that have come along the way are amazing. But so have all the blessings and the amazing people. And that's why my niche is compassion, because literally me and wisdom have been the, what's the word? We have been the recipients of compassion from thousands, at least hundreds, if not thousands of people. I kid you not. And so it is my endeavor to do that, to be that person for others, because $1 here, $2 here, 100 here, 600 here, which somebody really did give us once. Um, these every once in a while and sporadic, they don't help. They don't meet people's needs. But given regularly, given solidly as though it were a paycheck, or putting somebody in a home that they need in an area that they might like, for in spaces where children can thrive and grow and develop much more healthy than they are. that is a unicorn. It really doesn't exist. And so I'm endeavoring to change that. I want to I want to show that um, I've I've accomplished several things. This is um, the pin that I got when I graduated from Raleigh Neighborhood College. This is probably my most recent certification. Um, this was our graduation, the program from our graduation ceremony, um, and this is my certificate. And this was an initiative, and unfortunately, it's kind of banged up because it's been in the car. It's not in a safe space. Um, and that initiative was to introduce me to the city of Raleigh, and the departments of the city of Raleigh, probably at least 20. This is the boards and commissions fellowship that I participated in through the NCLCV, the North Carolina League of Conservation Voters. That I trained to become a servant leader, and as a serve to be able to serve in a position such as a board or commission. And I'm using it to fuel what I'm doing as mayor to become mayor, because that is an intention. But I am not running on things that I hope to do because I've seen how finicky um, city councilors can vote. I also am aware that there's things that the city can't do unless the state approves it. And so I have initiatives of my own that I'm working on. Um, but I want to also speak to this document. This is the action plan for an early childhood homelessness support system. And if you open the front page, down there is me, Carlin Sanders, aka Mama Kai. I wrote one of the two introductions on it, as well as participated in and compiling it, investigating it, because I was a parent engagement specialist and I was paid for that. It was over a 2 year period. And so it wasn't something that I could claim as steady income, but when I needed the money, it was very helpful. Needing money, it was very helpful. I honestly cannot tell you how we survived all this time, but it could, because it literally was by the grace of God and people. Um, this is um, Dr. Mary Haskett is actually the person who was part of spearheading this particular project. She's the person I was introduced to. She just retired from NC State after 30 years, and she has a very decorated career. Um, if I'm not mistaken, she currently serves as the chairperson for the board of directors for the program called Host that she launched, called Housing Our Students Today, because of the disparities in the amount of NC State students that that are unhoused and food insecure. And so it's not just a passion of hers for families and children, but for everyone, that there should be housing, that there should be stability. She also wrote a letter, just a general letter of recommendation for me last February, when I asked her if she would just write a general letter just speaking to her work with me. And I was really grateful for that because it spoke very highly of how she felt about me. And I appreciate that. And since then, I've had a lot of support. The person who's hosting the fundraiser that's right now is wrote this letter of recommendation. This was also last year in October. His name is Robert Courts. It's just a PayPal. Unfortunately it ends tonight, I think at midnight, and I haven't had the time to really focus on it. But there have been a few donations as I've tried to share. I've also had donations from the Food Revolution Network previously in the past, and also Rob Herring from Earth Conscious Films. Um, the Earth Conscious, um, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity that um, I was afforded to receive a donation from Ocean Robbins, representing the Food Revolution Network, as well as Rob Herring, representing Earth Conscious Films, because The Need to Grow is like a phenomenal film. Um, but this hasn't been done. Like the things that I'm doing are very intentional. Those are kind of like my side projects, I would say, because the major things that I've worked on in the last few years, as far as getting more education, was I went through the Jai Institute for Parenting, their parent coach program, because what I saw and what I know about from the circle of security training that I took when Wisdom was two, before we were in this situation, is that parenting is the problem, but it's also the solution to all the ills that we have in the world, to all the ills that we have in the world. And there's not enough information about brain development, nervous system regulation, trauma, and nutrition. And that's what we really need out there. They are my passions. But in order to understand those, we first need to have compassion. And that's why compassion is my niche. Because if we can have compassion for ourselves and compassion for others, the healing can come. But until we have that, people are just going to continue to struggle because there is no alleviating the suffering. And so when I learned about brain development, nervous system regulation, trauma, and nutrition, the next thing that I did the following year, I got a scholarship for the Food Revolution Network. And that's how I actually met Ocean Robbins. Um, they offered a scholarship for their plant-based coaching certification program. And unfortunately, I haven't like certified for either one of these programs. Even though I've done the work to finish I've done the practicum client for Jai. I had never actually submitted the paperwork because we just haven't been settled. But I had two clients that went through the whole program with me. And then for the Food Revolution Network, I just haven't had the capacity to sit down and give my brain the time to go through the information they have, complete all the quizzes and stuff that they have along the way. It's a beautiful program, but I just haven't had the capacity to, because I literally am just seeking to survive on a daily basis. And in order to survive, and not even that's not my intention. My intention is for me and Wisdom to thrive, even in this circumstance, simply because I strive for us to have regulated nervous systems, because that is the common denominator of us all. That is like the foundation of who we all are. And so my time is spent playing games when Wisdom needs connection, like, and he requires connection and he deserves connection. He will stop me and say, Mommy, I want to play a game. And so we'll play a game. He wants to tell me about all the games that he's been playing, like on the phone and stuff like that. That is not the life I ever intended for him. I wanted him to be outside. I wanted him to be running around. I wanted us to be plant based. I had all these designs for our life before this experience came. But I'm so grateful for this experience because it's showing me that when a parent can lead as well as follow, children can thrive in the most difficult circumstances. And I think getting this news that someone called Child Protective Services on me really hurt my feelings, because they don't know what I'm going through just to get past this circumstance, so that I can live where I want, so that I can have the income that we need, so that my son can have the life that he deserves. But in the meantime, we have regulated nervous systems, which is so much better than I would say 75% of the people who have houses and jobs and everything else, because people are miserable. And so it just became really important to me to come on here and say that I'm going to continue pressing forward and doing what I feel is right for me and Wisdom. And I also want to speak to the fact that the whole thing with CPS could very well possibly be a hoax, because I am sitting in the same store that the person who I spoke with um, is said there was a CPS worker that came in and was looking for me. I'm not saying she's the one who did it, but I believe that management was involved in it, and I would hate to make that assumption. But I called CPS today because God was like, I was just sitting there thinking about all the people that I know who have had CPS called on them. and whether there were positive outcomes or negative outcomes, or the children were threatened to be taken away, or the children were taken away, or whatever. And I was like, you know what? I know I'm not doing anything wrong. So let me call. And so I called and I told them what I had heard. And she said, well, we don't generally work that way. And she's like, did they have your name? I said, no. And she said, okay. So I gave her my name and I gave her my number. And she said, well, I'm going to look in the system. And if there's a social worker that's involved, I'll have them call you. And I said, okay. So if it is a thing, then I'll find out. But if it wasn't and it was a hoax and somebody told somebody to tell her on purpose, then it's really heartbreaking that we have people who are so oppressed that they have to be oppressive to others who are just trying to make it every day. And I'm not just trying to make it every day, because when I come out on the other side of this, it is going to be powerful. Like, I already know. I already see myself as mayor. I already see that they had it at the last swearing in ceremony at the train station. Nope. Mine is going to be at the convention center because as the first Black female mayor of Raleigh is going to be a big event. I'm building community first, though. I'm not going to walk into an election cycle or an election period promising things, because I know how things can shift so quickly just by one person making a different decision. I want to show that I want to prove that Raleigh is a compassionate city. And I want to build on that. I want to address issues outside of government, because as community, we have the power. We have the greatest power. We have the greatest power to make change. We don't have to wait for everybody else. And I think that's where we've been misled. We have this huge national presidential campaign that draws us away from the municipal level campaigns. And let me tell you, the thing that will make the most difference in what Raleigh can and cannot accomplish is what happens at the state level, because we're a Dillon state, which I learned in both the boards and commissions fellowship and in the Raleigh Neighborhood College. Because we are a Dillon state, the state has so much to say about how the city is run. If they want to, they can take the responsibility of zoning away from the city of Raleigh and take it upon themselves and just level everything. They can work directly with developers and authorize everything a developer wants to do, and the city would have no say if they just choose to take that power away from them. So it's important that we understand these things. That we don't we give our municipal level um, leaders a hard time a lot of the times, without realizing the pressures that they're under to perform for other people, that they regulate themselves so that they don't step on somebody's toes in the General Assembly who could totally squash whatever initiative they are trying to initiate. And so I've learned all these things because I've been engaged. I recognize the balance of the pain of those who have lived here, who have been historically oppressed, whose lands and properties and things have been confiscated and used, and how on that land now rest things that need to be developed further, that there's new businesses there that want to thrive and that are struggling. They need things to happen. And so there has to be this delicate dance of meeting everybody's needs and not shutting anybody out from the conversation at the table. And so I believe I'm the person for that job, simply because I start with a foundation of compassion, which this city council does not have. And they have admitted to it. I will tell you specifically because I asked them to reestablish the Mayor's Commission on Compassion, which was established by Nancy McFadden. She was the mayor up until December of 2019. She established the Mayor's Commission on Compassion, which was in conjunction to partner Raleigh with other communities around the world who are invested in the Charter for Compassion. I asked them on June 20th of last year to reestablish that commission because it was the one that I was most interested in serving on, and it had been defunct since COVID. Go figure. When we need compassion the most, it went defunct, um, because Nancy McFadden was no longer mayor, and Mayor Baldwin no longer took up the flag. She didn't want it, and they never did. They never reinstituted it. Then the war in Palestine hit. And for months, even till this day, if I'm not mistaken, up until the last council meeting, public comment period, when they still had people speaking about putting a ceasefire out, establishing a ceasefire. Um, those were things that months ago, in November, they could have could have sent to the Commission on Compassion to handle on an official level. And so I say all those things to say that the things that I'm doing to just keep me in wisdom, housed, and safe. Um, One of the reasons I've been panhandling more lately is because um, we took in a young lady. One night it had rained, and she got drenched. And I took her. She needed to go to the store because she needed to buy her son some dry clothes. And so she got in the car. I put a towel down, and they sat on the towel, and then she stayed in the hotel with us that night. So when the night was done, I mean when she got out of the car, I moved the towel off of the seat, but then I put stuff on top of it. It was just last week when I took the stuff off of the towel, off of the seat, and found that there was mold growing in our back seat. There's mold growing in our back seat. There's mold growing on the floor, on our carpet, because there's so much moisture and there's so much heat, and us keeping the car closed and all this other stuff, it has caused mold to grow. So I cleaned off what I could, but there's still mold in the cushions. And so I can't have, especially when the weather is inclement and it's raining overnight and we're normally sleeping in a closed in car with the air conditioning on, I can't have us breathing that. And no matter how much I clean it up, like it's still going to reappear because it hasn't had a chance to dry out completely because it's humid. And so there's a bigger problem here that I'm trying to solve. And after spending $700 on 8 night, about $700 on 8 nights in a hotel, we're still unhoused. Like, that's rent for almost half a rent for some people. Halfway there. And so I just say that to just kind of sit back into what I'm doing and reconfirm to myself that what I'm doing is important, to lead with compassion, to lead with understanding, first in seeking to understand, then to be understood. I understand what's happening. I think about all the people in the camps who are getting wet and who are getting drenched and whose belongings are soaked, and how many more bugs they have to deal with, and mosquitoes, especially because they love moist environments. And so I'm going to continue working on what I'm working on. I'm going to continue pushing forward to do what needs to be done to keep me and wisdom fed in a car where we can sleep safely, or panhandling enough to get us in a hotel room until things start to pan out. Again, I mentioned this fundraiser. It's been there for 30 days. On PayPal, you can do a fundraiser. It's only for 30 days. I don't have the time to market it because I'm out there. And I also, honestly, I haven't had the courage. Like, it takes a lot of courage just to get out there and talk about this, and I'm only starting to do that. And then to ask people to contribute money to help me. That's why I had somebody else managing it, because it would help me not to have to focus on that. And so I'm building, but right now I need community too. And that's what my focus is on. And whatever I have to do to build that community first, if it means we're going to continue to live in the car until that community is built, and that community can then generate the funds that we need so that we can get into a home, that we can build a nonprofit that will serve others who are in what I would think are far worse positions. They don't have regulated nervous systems, then I'm going to keep doing it. And I'm committed to that. But I needed somebody out there to know. I needed to be known and heard that what I'm doing is not being done in the dark. It is being done with intention. Because when we get out of this situation, we're going to get out of this situation and continue to thrive because we already are. It's not by accident. We are thriving on purpose. I'm able to get out there and grow on purpose because of the things that I've been doing, because of the things that I have worked on. And so I am not afraid of what's ahead of me. I am honored by the gift that we have from the faith perspective. And when I think about what Jesus said about foxes have holes and birds have nests, but the Son of Man hath nowhere to lay his head, like I think on that, and I think, you know what? I at least have a car. Jesus had nothing. He was borrowing space in somebody's room too. He was laying at a borrowed tomb, like he didn't have nothing. So if I having little but still having something, the most important thing I have is a regulated nervous system. And I have a son who I strive to co-regulate with so he can have a regulated nervous system. And we've been through some stuff. And the simple fact that he is continues to be as amazing as he is, like I'm proud of where we are, where we've been, despite the incredible unkindnesses that we've received, to see how kind he still can be. And that we're changing the world. We are absolutely changing the world. And I'm not even going to apologize. I never had any intention of apologizing for where we've been and what we're doing and things of that nature, because that would be a disgrace and a shame, and it would be offensive to God for where he's brought us from. And so to God be the glory, I will say in ending and conclusion, because for everybody else who has dropped out and who I reach out to and has ghosted me and could very well put a word out there and boost me so that we could have what we need and then I can turn around and help others, they're gone or they're silent. And it's okay, because I'm still pushing forward, because I know that the community that I'm looking for, the community that I say I want to be 3C with me, and the 3Cs are compassionate, committed, and crazy, like Steve Jobs crazy, like when he said, those who are crazy enough to believe they can change the world are the ones who do, like that's my crazy. And that's what I'm doing. And I will do it. And if I have to do it from this place of being unhoused and food insecure, I'm going to do it so that I can make sure that others end up being housed and food secure in a way that is compassionate and meets their needs and alleviates their suffering. And they get the mercy that they need, not just what people want to give. And if that means, I know I'm building a new system and the other one is going to be dismantled. And then I'm going to step into a place of power as the first Black female mayor of Raleigh in this year's election as a write-in candidate, so that I can make sure that policies can be created or that we can get the support that we need from the city to make sure that more initiatives are available so that we can get the affordable housing built. That's really the biggest piece that I feel the city is responsible for. And I just saw a post today about how somebody had 150 units created in their district in 2 years. And I was like, there has been nothing built. So that's not 150 units for how many people and at what level? Like, is it 60% AMI, which is $60,000? Is it at 30% AMI where it's needed or below? And so when it comes to affordable housing, like, whew, but also just because people need to be able to have diversity, they need to have choice. They should be able to be where they want to be. And I'm very committed to that. And so, to whoever it was, whether it was a hoax in saying that CPS was called on me or whether it actually happened, again, I called CPS. I'm waiting for a call back to see if they needed to speak to me. And so, with that, I am just saying, you know what? Thank you for your concern for my son. Because when you call, it says, if you would like to report the neglect or abuse of a child, please press one. So that's what they would have had to suggest I was doing. That hurt when I heard that message. But if that's what that person felt was happening, that's on them. And they get to put it in, they get to deal with that with whoever they feel is better. And if that's what they felt they needed to do to make themselves feel better about our situation, then I just want to say thank you, because it got me out of my shell to be able to speak about my situation and let people know I'm not ashamed of what we do. I'm not ashamed. I don't have the right to be. We are so blessed. We have seen the goodness of so many people over and over and over again. That and that there's stories that I can't tell. Now there have been some nasty people, there have been some evil people that we have had to cross paths with, but you know what? When you don't have those experiences, you don't appreciate the ones that are so truly powerful. But I mean, I get emotional every time people stop and they'll say like, I don't have anything, and I'm like, That's okay. Just pray for us. Like the prayers work. They really do. And when somebody says, all I have is $1, I'm like, we don't believe in all. Like, we know that just the simple fact that you are giving from your heart, like, because you are giving from your heart, that's the most important gift. And we know that God multiplies everything that we give, that we receive. And so I am not ashamed of being an amazing parent, of being the mom and student of a young Black male superhero. I am a superhero because of the things that I am capable of doing because I get to raise him and he helps raise me. I'm watching him grow in confidence. I'm hearing him speak his mind. I'm watching him as he defends himself. And I'm watching him also where it's kind of a challenging space to be in when your child doesn't want to tell on another child because he told me that he doesn't tell on other children because he doesn't like the way it feels. So he won't tell on another child. He'll just handle the situation in the best way he feels he needs to. And he also often gets treated horribly because he's just doing what he needs, his nervous system is telling he needs to do to defend himself. But I'm so proud of him for all the trauma responses that he's had that nobody wants to acknowledge, for all the challenges that he's been through that are molding him to be this incredible human being, adult or child. He is phenomenal, charming, dynamic, creative, beautiful. He's a musician. He's learning to play ukulele and piano. Like in our situation, living in a car, we have a keyboard that somebody gave us. We have a ukulele somebody gave us. The money that has come for him to pay for his lessons is being taken care of by other people. Okay, like we have an amazing experience. I have such a strong just testimony. We have such an amazing story of all the things that are just amazing about what we do and who we are and what we are yet to do. And so, again, the things I'm doing are not being done in the dark. When I went through my first shelter program and realized that they don't really help people, that they are not going to help people they're only helping people move from one level of poverty to level of poverty. They're not actually moving people from poverty to prosperity. I couldn't take it. I didn't know what the feeling was back then, but I know now, and I can put a name on it, that I know what it feels like when my nervous system is being oppressed and I am in fight or flight. And when I'm in that state of mind, when my nervous system is activated like that, I do not make my best decisions. I didn't have the terminology back then. I'm not sure how to explain it without the scientific terms, but that's what it is. And that's what they keep you in those shelter programs. They keep you in a state of fight or flight. I can't do that, and I won't let anybody else do it to me. And I I won't let I will not put myself in situations where my nervous system is triggered because really it's not their fault. Somebody else could handle what they're doing because maybe they haven't had the same types of oppression. But I know I'm very oppression sensitive and wisdom is very oppression sensitive. So we don't thrive in those types of circumstances. Our brains instantly disconnect. And so it is incredibly important to me for us to have regulated nervous systems, be doing things that we are passionate about, that make us feel like we are contributing to our building our own relationship and making it better, but also contributing to the world in a positive way. And so this has been long. Some ways I feel like I rambled. I feel like I've just gotten to the point, but also gotten to the point that the things that I'm doing, they're not being done in the dark. There is great purpose in us being unhoused at this time. And it's an honor. It's an absolute honor to be in this experience. And so I just thank you for the time that you have taken to watch. I hope you have gotten something from this. And if you would just share, again, we have a fundraiser that was started by a friend of mine. I asked him to do it so that he could be responsible for the funds so I didn't have to worry about it. So the money all goes to him. And then I ask him to send me I need in the moment. We've had 3 donations, even though when you go on there, it says none. And I don't know why that is. But it ends tonight because we've had 30 days and I haven't done 30 days worth of work on it. And I'm okay with that. You can also contribute to, you can also send money to us directly if you'd like. You can also, um, the other thing that you can do is go on the my professional business card, and if you scroll down to the end, there's a lot of videos that you can sign up to watch. There you can watch them for free. But if you purchase them at any time for all access, or if you purchase any of the impact kits, I'm an affiliate with the FRN, the Food Revolution Network, so I'll get a commission off of those. There might be something health related that you want to learn more about, and so there are those aspects as well. But honestly, the most important thing you can do for us right now is, if you've got compassion, if you know that you have sympathy, or a sense of sympathy or sorrow towards another suffering, and but coupled with a strong desire to alleviate that suffering, go to my digital business card, look for the question that says got compassion. Got compassion. It's a question. Click on it and then find the form and fill out that form so that we can get connected. Share that with people so that we can create a community of genuinely compassionate people who are seeking to change the world and make it a better place for everyone. I want us to live in a city where people can walk down the hall or walk next door, and instead of having to always call on Instacart and or go without, they can go to their neighbor and say, "Hey, do you have a couple of eggs I can use?" Or, "Do you have a cup of sugar I can have?" That's the world that I believe that we are headed back to, and that's the world that I want to be a strong part in creating. And so, thank you again for your time. It has been an amazing experience. Thank you to everyone who joined, and for just investing your time in this moment. It is incredibly important for me. Um, it's incredibly important for me to just speak, because I've been silent for so long. I felt like I needed to be silent for so long, and also I've just been scared to speak. So that's a big part of it. When you put your line for other people to hear, it's a scary experience. So I'm incredibly grateful for this opportunity to just speak, to hear myself speak, and to be heard. And with that, I just say God's continued blessings, continued success, and enjoy the amazing day you're creating. Peace, y'all.